Hello and happy Saturday, November the 5th. I hope everybody's having an awesome Saturday. Mine has been pretty great so far. I got to go hiking with my family and get outside and enjoy some sunlight and not be just stuck behind my computer, which was pretty great. And now it's time to make with the sculpting. So for anybody that is new to watching, tonight I'm going to be sculpting with Magic Sculpt, which is a two-part air drying resin. And I've decided this evening that I'm going to be sculpting on top of this critter. And this was just a real cheap wall hanging like coat hanger thing that I found at a local hobby shop that was in like the super discount area. So I thought I would turn this into the concept sketch that is currently in the right-hand side of my screen. It could be a little bit different. It's not a big deal, but I wanted to just do a smaller piece that I could have for some upcoming shows. Speaking of, I just found out that I will be at the Indie Craft Experience in Chattanooga on December the 10th, which is exciting. It's the first time that it's branched, from what I know, it's the first time it's branched from Atlanta into another city, so I think that would be it'll be a good experience to bring some weirdness to the folks of Chattanooga. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Whenever I'm using Magic Sculpt, I always wear gloves because I have an allergic reaction to the something in the chemical, some of the materials. I know other people that don't, but I always tend to wear them just so that my eyes don't swell shut. And you can buy big old boxes of these nitrile gloves, and they're not that expensive for what you'll get out of them. Now, Magic Sculpt comes in a bunch of different size buckets. I'm currently using the big 10-pound bucket, and it is a two-part material. So I'm going to pull some out, and since we're working on a smaller piece and we're going to be working on details, I'm not going to mix too much up at any one time. I'm just going to go in and grab a small batch right here, small ball full, and I'll start adding. Then I'll grab the same size, well, make it a little bigger than that. I do have a lot of area to cover on this piece to make it how I want to make it. Okay, I'm going to grab that, and then I'll grab some of part B. The lighter of the two gray colors is the resin, and the darker of the two is the hardening agent. So I'll grab the other bucket, and let's grab this out. And I'm going to do the same thing, where I'm going to pinch out about the same amount. Now, you can use, the hardening agent has a distinct odor to it that the resin does not. But I'm going to try and grab out about the same size. If you do a little more of the hardening agent, it's going to harden up faster. If you do a little more of the resin, it's going to go a little bit slower. But I try and do them at about the same pace, just so that when these two buckets are at their end, I'm not too off balance. It doesn't have to be exact, but getting it pretty close is good. Now I'm going to take these two balls and I'm going to roll them out into coils. Apologies for the smacking sound as it hits my nitrile gloves. Whoa. So I'm just gonna, it can pull apart, it's not a big deal. Just lay that down next to it. I'll do the same thing with the resin part. And now this stuff will start to set up in about an hour, and it will really harden up overnight or in 24 hours. You take the two colors, you see how they're different, and just start twisting them together, and then you can just start working them together until they're one solid universal color. You'll work all the marbleization out, and you'll see them be the two distinct colors here, but then you'll want to make sure that you just work it through. I do like this Nappy Root song very much. Okay, going to keep working this down, then we'll start adding some of the sculpting on top of this little critter. And I'm not sure how many things we'll sculpt tonight. It'll depend on how this one goes. If I need to do like part of it, let it dry, and then keep moving. If so, since I've got two small shows in December, they're both one-day shows, and they're both targeted towards like a holiday buying crowd that's going to have, probably I'll need to have some smaller pieces. I'm going to do a couple new magnets where I'll do the sculpture, then create a mold of those and cast those out of a liquid resin. I'm also thinking about doing an ornament or two, probably a Krampus ornament. So, might start on those, I don't know, we'll have to see. I haven't really concept sketched those out, anything of those out, so I may just start sculpting and see where it goes. Thanks, Wyatt. We'll see if this ends up looking like the concept drawing, but that's the idea. You guys still playing the Infinity? All right. So now these two, the hardening agent and the resin, are mixed together, and they look pretty thoroughly mixed. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing some sculpting. Now, I'm not quite used to sculpting at this angle, so I may need to tilt it up every now and again, but I thought it'd be good for you to see it from this angle. So, also what I'll do, where's my Sharpie at? I'm going to grab a Sharpie real quick and do a little bit of drawing on here. Oops, sorry for the camera tilt. There we go. I'm going to, I was going to grab a Sharpie and draw a little line in here, but I think I'll be okay. Let's start with the kind of, that's going down the chest piece just a little bit. This has more of a distinct pattern to it. So I'm going to take some of this Magic Sculpt and just kind of flatten it out to about the right shape and size of what I wanted it here. And then I'm just going to press it down with my thumbs. I'm going to just lay it in, and what this will do, it'll give me a good foundation for where I want it to be. Then we'll start spraying it with a little bit of water and really smoothing it in. And once that happens, I'll come along the edge and kind of clean it up with a knife and cut the excess off. And then we can go in and start adding some of the details. So, let's see. It's always good to have a little squirt bottle with just some water handy when using Magic Sculpt, because this stuff smooths down so well with water. Especially when you're working on something like found piece like this is. By smoothing it down and working it into the surface, it's going to really get a good hold. And I've never had any issues with Magic Sculpt really coming off of anything. So once it sets up and once it cures to it, it's really going to get a good bond. I'm just going to keep smoothing this down just a little bit. Yes, the Krampus of the ornament and the magnet is for Carrie, as she has gone back and watched the Krampus movie again a couple of times. Gonna smooth this down just a little bit more. I'd originally thought this texture was going to come around the underside as well, but I think it's just going to be down the front. I'm going to give it a pattern and then probably work in some extra pieces into it. So with this, now that I've got that where I've got the Magic Sculpt in where I want to be, I'm going to grab this flat knife tool, and then I'm just going to go along the line, the edge where I want it to be. Hey, what's happening, Treverion? I hope your Saturday is going well. So I'm just going to slide down along here and bring it up. And I'll scrape away the excess, and I will use that bit in just a little while. And so one of the things with getting this nice clean edge, I'm going to end up smoothing it down again, because I don't want it to have this huge, hard, raised up surface. But for now, that'll at least try and make sure both sides are kind of equal and evened up, so that I'm going from a similar starting point. Even if my lines aren't always exactly straight or precise. Haha! Oh yeah, I'm definitely doing fine. What time is it where you are? I'm having a good Saturday. It's nice to not be doing any of the work and just making some art. Okay, I cut off most of that there. I'm going to go ahead and spray it down again and smooth down the edges just a little bit and make sure it's still lining up roughly where I want it to be. So again, the water with the Magic Sculpt really allows you to smooth things down and really get a nice, good blend. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up bringing fur back over top of this this texture once I'm done, so I don't have to really cover up those seams real well. Damn, 240? Yeah, that's way past my bedtime too. The latest I usually ever make it till is about 1, and that's usually my cutoff when I just have to force myself to turn my brain off and try and get to sleep. What's keeping you up so late? Okay, there's a little bit in here that I'm just kind of smoothing down just to get the surface real nice and clean. Okay. Now that we've got the base foundation for this, where I'm going to want this kind of a diamond-like pattern coming in here, I'm going to go ahead and grab one of my favorite resources for trying to make straight lines in clay, and that's just some dental floss. So with this, I'm going to make sure I pull out a long enough piece that I'm going to be able to wrap around my fingers a couple of times. Damn, 16 weeks of deprivation will definitely help anyone. How's everything going with you tonight? And Nazareth? Yeah, I know how the brain thing, it's sometimes it's real hard to cut off. So I'm going to grab this dental floss, and I'm just going to take it from the corner at the top left where I want it to go, and bring it down, and use that as a starting point. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here, and just keep going in a row and try and make it equally spaced. And then I'm going to pull it up around the top as well. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been deprived for 16 weeks. That's quite some time. Okay, so you should be able to see that using this dental floss easily gets a nice clean straight line, especially if you pull it taut. That my hand won't do normally, just doing like pulling a knife down to get it steady. This at least gives me a good guide. I'm going to go ahead and start at the same point on the other side to try and get it fairly even. And knowing it doesn't have to be equal, but getting a decent pattern in here. Now I'm going to twist this guy around and see what I couldn't get from the other angle. Some of this is going to be a little bit harder with, might just have to lay it down just a little bit here and jam it down with my thumb to try and get it in place. And just give me a basic idea, and then have to come back later with one of the tools to carve it down. So that was just a real quick, easy way to start getting some decent straight lines without having to think about it too much, just pulling that dental floss. And now that I've got that, I'm going to jump in with, what'd you go to school for, Treverion? I'm going to pull my, one of my little shovels that I call them, the little gardening shovels. Just a little shovel, and I'm going to scrape the edges just a bit. I'm going to spray this guy down again. And since I've got the basic clean lines, all right, have a good night, Treverion. Good luck getting to sleep. Hope to see you again sometime. I'm just going to pull that down. So the shovel kind of gives the edge, the concave edge, just a little bit. And I'm going to pull this up. Just giving a little deeper groove to what I already put down and the straight lines that I put down with the dental floss. And so the dental floss also make it easy for me to just start pulling, since as long as I just follow that line, it's going to give it a good groove. I'm pulling it in. And then I think we'll probably put we'll see. Right on. Yeah, I've never been good with the sciences. Is that what you teach, biology? And you don't have to keep answering me. I know you were going off to bed, as you should be. And just getting these deeper lines. I'm going to make sure I get all of them. Need to grab a paper towel to wipe my tools off as I go. Try and keep more build-up from happening on my tools. And we're almost all the way down with these lines. These are the finer ones in here that I didn't quite get because the floss was hard to wrap around that strange angle. Do it again over here. All right. That one's a little bit wonky down that way, but that's not a big deal. Excellent. Well, hopefully you won't drool all over the keyboard and short-circuit things. So now I've got a decent pattern here that I like for the texture underneath of this creature. I wanted it to be kind of flat. I've done some other ones that are more like upholstery, where it's got more of a tufted look to it. But I've also picked up these strange little fashion squares at a local craft store. Hey, Mystic Scorpion. Well, thank you for the follow. Right now I'm using Magic Sculpt. It is a 2-part air drying resin. 1 part resin, 1 part hardening agent that you mix together, equal parts, and it turns into a grayish color, and then it starts to cure and starts to air dry. And once it's all dry, like, it starts to set up in about an hour, and then overnight, or like 12 to 24 hours, it really cures. So now that I've got these in, I'm going to see what happens when I add some extra little diamond spikes to it. Do you do sculpting as well, Mystic Scorpion? I'm just going to gently push these down into the Magic Sculpt, because once the Magic Sculpt gets to them as it dries and cures, these are going to get in there solid. And then especially once I start painting them, it'll just blend right in. Now here, when adding these, right on. What material are you using so far? I used Sculpey when I first started messing around with customizing toys and stuff, and then I moved on to this because I like the air drying factor about it. I didn't like having to bake things. And now as I'm starting to put these down, I'm starting to see that how easily my gloves are getting things on. All right, good night, Treverian. Sleep well. Treverian was saying that it's 2:40 in his neck of the woods. I would definitely be off to sleep as well. And so these won't actually be silver in color whenever I go to paint it, because right on. I think that's definitely a very good starting point. And then another one that I think, if you're trying to just learn textures and techniques and stuff like that, Monster Clay is really great, because you can warm it up and keep working with it, and it doesn't ever actually cure if you're just trying to learn how to sculpt with things. But then you can also make molds from it if you ever want to. Right on. Well, art really is, the more you practice, the more muscle memory it becomes, and the more second nature it becomes, and the easier it gets. I don't think anybody's really great at any of it when they first start out, but it's just the folks that stick with it and keep doing it, it just becomes, when you don't have to think about it, it becomes so much more enjoyable, and you're just really immersing yourself in the art and the technique. And I would always just encourage anybody that doesn't think they're good at art to just keep going and always try, and they will definitely get better. Hey, Kyara, thank you for the follow. If I did not pronounce that right, please let me know. I hope you are having a good Saturday night. Excellent. I like the idea of that. The octopus leg iPad holder. With that, are you using any sort of armature wire or anything underneath of the Sculpey to try and help give it that extra foundation and secure it in place? Because if you have some sort of basis to start things with, I think that always tends to help. I'll grab a little bit of my coffee. Excuse me. So for anybody that's just tuning in that hasn't been in since the beginning, I'm taking a base form that I found at a local hobby shop. I did a concept sketch, which is over on the right-hand side of the window, and I'm using Magic Sculpt, which is a 2-part air drying resin clay, to sculpt on top of it. Awesome. Yeah, totally. Show me a picture. When I do suckers, usually I'll just make a ball, right? And then I will push the ball in place. I can't remember if Sculpey takes water or not, but I just smooth around the edges while pushing down on my thumb. And it quickly starts to get the basic shape of it. And start doing it that way. And then smooth it around and start to get slightly off circles so they're all a little bit different. That's how I usually start to do suckers on things. All right, get off of there, dental floss. So now that we have that base foundation there of the under chest, I'm gonna twist this guy around and start working on doing the face part a little bit. Excellent. Damn. So I'm going to have to look at that later because I've got my gloves on, and I do my best to try not to touch my keyboard while I've got this, because I've got a couple little spots on my laptop where it's definitely got some Magic Sculpt on it, and it's not so pretty. Excellent. I will definitely take a peek once this is all done, or when I go to take a break and pull these gloves off. So a lot of times for eyes, when I'm not actually putting like glass eyes that I've made in, and currently I didn't think to make some eyes ahead of time for this, I'll just end up using thumbtacks as a way to get the basic eye shape in, to get a nice good round shape. Thumbtacks, push pins. But all the eyes that I had that I've made are a little bit bigger, so I'm just going to use these to get a decent shape. The problem with this is I haven't clipped these off, so let's see if I've got some wire cutters handy. Nope. Alright, I'm just going to try and bend these out. There we go. Oh, I see the wire cutters if this doesn't work. So I just bent push the thumbtack down. That's going to give me the basic shape for the eye, a little bit around this. A lot of people also use like marbles or ones that are specifically made for this. Come on. All right, I'm going to grab some wire cutters. Hang on just a sec. Snipping off a little bit of this push pin will definitely give it some space to actually go into the Magic Sculpt. And there we go. Right now it's starting to look a little weird and wonky-eyed, but this will start to give me the idea of how this thing's going to look, how it'll be staring at me. Most of the eyes that I make, I usually make them a little bit bigger than these, so I think based on having the skull on top of this guy, if I do the skull up here, I don't know, these look a little bit small and beady. Let me grab some eyes and see what you guys think. Alright, so here are some different eyes that I've made. I'll lay one of each down. We'll see if you guys think any of these would go well with this critter. They are a little bit big. So if I were to put this, let's just pop this off for a second. If I were to put this on here, it's definitely, I mean, there's going to be clay on top of it, so it's going to go a long way. That one's a little too, like, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. But I think the reptilian lizard-looking ones are a little too lizardy. Maybe the blue? I think the blue would go well. Anybody have any thoughts on this? And my chat always tends to have a lag, so I'm going to hold off on putting anything on here, just in case anybody's giving some thoughts on it. But while that's happening, I'll go ahead and roll out a little bit of a foundation for this horn that's going to be on the front of this guy's face. I'll just get a really good starting point there. And so, like, with the Magic Sculpt, since we have yellow, like this yellow one, I guess the other one's green with a little bit of yellow around the outside. So yes, I think this one's probably the one that mean. Let's go with that. I'm going to keep the reddish color down towards the bottom. Just going to jam that thing down in there. We'll pull this piece off, this push pin thumbtack off. We got to grab the other eye that's the same color. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. There we go. Take the other eyeballs away. Thank you for your input. And so since I've just recently started making my own eyes, I've made a bunch of different ones to try and see how it would come out, how they'd print out, and then how they would work when actually working with these. And I'm going to turn those into little pocket monsters. Excellent. So right now it looks all big-eyed and crazy, but it'll look, I think once I start putting the rest of the stuff around it, it'll start to look good. Let's get a little bit of water on here, clean off some of the excess Magic Sculpt. And now let's start putting a little bit of fur and stuff, start building up the eye sockets around it. What I'll do is I'll pinch off a little bit of Magic Sculpt, and then I'm going to try and get equal parts, pinch it in half. And then I'm going to just build up around the top, and then I'll build up around the bottom as well. Let's see. Figure out a good way to hold this and make it so that you guys can see it. So I'm just going to use my thumb to gently jam it down into place. Then I'm going to flip, do the other side, and then I'll do the bottom section. And then we'll take some water and start and really spray it and smooth it in so it really grabs on to this base shape that's here. Again, taking a piece, snapping it in half, rolling out a little coil, and with this coil, I'll turn this critter on its side. And since this piece is just, a piece that I want to make and something fun, and we'll see if other folks like it. If it varies from the initial concept sketch, it's not a big deal. If the Magic Sculpt starts to take this in a different direction, if the eyes start to say something different, yes, definitely. The whole surface will be completely different and painted. Once it's all sculpted and dry, then I'll go ahead and I'll tape off the eyes and I'll spray paint it with a black base, and then I'll paint on top of that. And so, just gonna gently keep pushing it down with my thumb and working that Magic Sculpt in. Yeah, most of the time I don't really think about colors until it's ready to be painted. Until I start actually painting it, I don't think about it much ahead of time. I just kind of let it go the color direction that it feels like it should go while I'm doing it. Unless there's something already about the backstory of the creature that seems like it would fit with the environment that it lives in. And I'm trying with all of my creatures now to really work them more into my setting, my world setting that I'm creating, that they all live in. So each one will have an idea. I'll have an idea of where they're they're based out of, what their habitat's like, and that can affect the coloration a bit. All right, so that just kind of smoothed things into place. I'm going to do the same thing with the foundation of where the horn's starting. We'll get that smoothed in, and then we'll start working on the overall textures on this top part of the head, and maybe starting to build out some of the shapes of the lower lip and stuff, because that'll be different than this base that it's already on. So I'm just going to spray some water on this horn. And now, as I'm going to be working around on this creature, I need to be very mindful of what I'm grabbing onto, because at some point I'll accidentally grab parts of it that I've already put Magic Sculpt on, and I'll smash some of the details I've put in, so I need to just make sure I think about that as I go. Now this isn't going to be the final horn part on here. I'll probably come back in, and because it's going to need texture and details, but I wanted to get it at least to a decent shape that I'm happy with, because that'll kind of help distinguish some of the other features that I put onto this face as we go. I like putting horns on almost everything. I like the idea of bone structures coming up and being used either as ways to intimidate folks to think that the creatures are tougher than they are, or for actual defense for these guys. Keep getting this piece of dental floss grabbing on that I use to make the lines across the under section. Okay, so now still got a bunch of Magic Sculpt. So I'm looking at the concept sketch and the face of this, and I know that I want kind of like an underbite, like a little bit of a bottom lip. So I'm going to start with that before I do the upper section. I'm pinching some of this, and I'm just going to dab off where I've sprayed, because once the surface gets some water on it, it makes it harder for the Magic Sculpt to grab onto. It can definitely be done, you just gotta smooth it down, but if I get a lot of that moisture off, it'll make it a little bit easier. So I tried piecing this around in about an even amount of clay around. I'm just gonna start mashing it down with my thumb to get it in place. I know, Mystic Scorpion, you said that you were just starting to do some sculpting. One of the things that I find the most appealing out of all the different types of art that you can do, something about sculpting and just making it out of your hands, just the direct contact with the pieces is such a satisfying feeling. I mean, I love to paint, I love to draw, but something about sculpting is totally different. Okay, so I'm just starting to put the foundation down. I know I'm going to want to build some fur coming down off of this chin. I'm going to want to put some teeth in up top. So I'm just going to grab another ball of Magic Sculpt and kind of start working this in the direction that I see this going. And knowing that as long as if I spray it with water, I can work that part in and keep blending the two together so they look like, so it fuses as though it was all put down at the same time. And I just keep smoothing along with my fingers. That's why a lot of times too that I will use my thumbs way more than I will any of the tools that I have for sculpting, because I like that tactile experience. I'm just continuing to push this stuff around to try and get an idea of what this lower lip, lower section, what personality it's going to give this character. Okay, I'm going to grab onto this ear. Again, trying to make sure I figure out where to grab onto with this guy. Making sure I smooth it down on every side. Alright, I think that was a good start there. Now I'm going to go ahead and put some of the Magic Sculpt on the top to get that shape down, and then we'll go from there. I'm just going to try and take a little bit off, and I'm going to flatten it down pretty good, because I want to make sure that I want that bottom lip to kind of come off a little bit more, so I'm flattening this down a little pancake-like before I lay it in, so I don't roll down a big coil and have it be overpowering on the bottom lip. And then even once all this is done, the idea of putting that bone mask on top will add another layer of dimension to it. But I'll probably want to get all this done, put the fur texture in, even though I'm going to sculpt on top of it, let that dry, and then come back to it another day to put that in how I want it in. And I'm just working this in, putting down the base foundation, knowing that like I'll get some water in just a minute and smooth it all down so that it all fits. If you see cracks and creases along the way, it's not a big deal, because since I am going to add more to it. And again, I'll pinch off equal size shapes when I'm going to be trying to make things fairly symmetrical, even though they don't have to be completely symmetrical. Alright, let's spray what we've got down and smooth it around and see where it goes. And I'm just smoothing that down. I'll even see about smoothing it into the eyes up here. That socket that to try and see how that blends in. See if I want to change the overall shape at all. But I really love Magic Sculpt. I think it's been really good to me so far in my sculpting quest. And this stuff turns out so solid and hard once it's all done. Alright, continuing to smooth this down just a little bit more, really blend it in. That is the one thing that I do really like though about monster clay when I work with it, is not having to wear the gloves, feeling even more in tune with the material. I want these cheeks on this critter to be kind of pinched out, like bubbled out a little bit more. I feel like right now it's a little too slim in the face, almost like how rabbits kind of have the big cheeks on the sides. So I'm gonna grab a little bit more of this. Whoa, no. How did that rip? Alright, luckily I've got my handy box of gloves. When I'm doing these gloves, I'm going to see if I can scroll up on the chat and see your picture now, and hopefully it won't take me away. Excellent. When wearing these gloves, I try and get the tightest gloves that I can stand for this, so that it gets as many of the creases out as possible. Cool. I totally dig the concept that you're putting down for the tentacles for the iPad stand. I think it's going to be awesome. So what I always try and get the tightest ones I can fit for doing this stuff, and then wear slightly bigger ones. That's right. I'm sculpting it rough. So and then I use larger ones when I'm doing like mixing chemicals to make molds and pour silicone and resin stuff. So all right, I'm gonna take this, try and make it equal. It feels a little there we go. That's pretty good. And now I'm gonna turn this guy on his side, and I'm gonna build out this cheek a little bit. And I think once we have this cheek in place, I'll start to work on some of the texture of the fur. Yeah, I think it's going to be very cool. So I've got that base shape in, and then you just spray it with a little bit of water and just smooth it down. And then when we start to go to put texture on, we'll spray it down with water again. As long as you keep spraying it with water while you're working on it, it's gonna work really well for taking textures, and it won't be too hard to get what you want out of it. But just by adding that cheek, the personality changes so much. Let's see if I can go at that angle. Um, Starting to look a little more giraffe-like in ways with the cheeks on there. There's something up in there. Oh, and I got a fair amount of Magic Sculpt on that eye. So the Magic Sculpt, when going on glass, can be scraped off pretty easily with an X-Acto knife once it's all said and done, like once it's all set up and dry. So usually I just let stuff get on there and then just scrape it down. But if I notice it while I'm working, I'll spray a little water and try and get most of it off, just to make it easier at cleanup time. Because eyes also get residue on them from tape when I put tape on top of them, for when I'm masking them, for putting the spray paint down for the base coats. But I love having the eyes looking at me while I'm sculpting. That's usually like one of the first things I put in, because the eyes add so much personality to things. Like this guy looks so gentle now because of those big eyes. All right, it's time to start adding we're going to start adding some fur and some texture to this. But first, I want to go in and put some grooves in, like under the eyes, above the eyes a little bit, some stuff around the mouth, to be more of the defining lines. And then we'll come back and we'll start putting some fur in. So to get that going, I'm going to tilt this on its side and make sure it's in camera. I'm going to spray it down with some water. And I'm going to take my shovel tool that I used earlier. It just looks like a little gardening shovel. And I'm going to go down under the eye and do a couple lines that I think will be a little bit deeper than the fur tool that I'm going to use. The fur tool is actually, it's called a rake, and it kind of gives that hair texture pretty quickly. I'm also going to come in to the lip and do some more definition there. I'll come back in a little bit and put that tooth in that I have drawn in there, but I'm not quite ready to put that in yet. So I'm going to go ahead and do some nostril, but for the nostril, I'm going to take that flat knife tool and just push down like that. And that'll give a good indentation for now. And now I'm going to take this same shovel and just do some little grooves around where the fur is coming up over the woohoo! What is up, Saving Throw Show? I thank you for the auto host, and thank you to any of the viewers that are gonna stick around and check out what I'm doing. I'm sculpting some strange fantasy creatures from my world of Revelo. Tonight I'm sculpting on top of a piece that I found at a local hobby store. It's just a wall hanger that's used to hang up jackets and a wall hook like that. So I'm sculpting on top of it with a two-part air drying material called Magic Sculpt. I created my own eye, I placed that in, and right now I'm just starting to put some textures in. If you're into sculpting or into weird fantasy creatures, please stick around and let me know if you have questions about anything that I'm doing. I'd love to share any knowledge that I have. So now I'm going to go ahead and spray the other side with some water so that it'll take the textures that I'm going to start putting in. And I'll go ahead and do the nostril on this side. Again, I'm using this flat knife handle piece. And I'm going to just kind of smash this down just a little bit and get the basic shape in there of what I want the nostril to be. We'll probably come back and clean that up in just a minute. Again, with the shovel tool, the garden shovel, I'm going to go into where that line was for the bottom lip and just kind of smooth that out just a bit. And then put some lines in under where the eye is before we start putting some fur lines into this guy. Now, I haven't really thought through much about where in Revelo this creature's from. Usually that starts to develop as I'm actually sculpting and as it gets a little bit further along. I tend to take ideas and stuff that anybody throws my way while we're doing this, just in case anybody wants to throw their 2 cents in on that sort of stuff. And I'm just going to spray it down with water to help smooth things down a little bit. And I like having little deeper grooves going in where the horns start coming up. And I'll go ahead and put some lines into the horn since this magic sculpt's been down kind of longer than anything else. I'm sorry I'm throwing them all around and upside down while I'm doing this, but moving them around so I can get the best angles is really going to make sure I get the most out of this sculpture. Alright, I'm going to clean up this eyelid just a little bit, because it wasn't quite as clean as I'd like that to be from smashing it down. He's looking so friendly. I'm going to put a little more right in this part of the mouth before going in, and we'll start putting some fur down. We'll use the rake so you can start to see the technique of using that tool pretty quickly. I'm going to spray that with a little bit of water, take the shovel tool, and just kind of smooth it in. And that will just quickly blend the bottom parts together, and I'll blend it up into, whoa, put some lines in there. Let's do that again. One of the things, while this is still soft and wet, you can just keep working it, and that tends to go really well. Alright. So now that we have that, I'm going to grab my rake. And the rake looks just like its namesake. I like putting this on top of the black glove so you can see it pretty well. So it looks like a rake, and when I'm doing it, I like to do it upside down so that it pulls the lines and I'm not like scraping it along. Again, you want to spray this with some water, and you want it to go in the direction of how you would imagine fur on a dog or a cat going. You want it going like with the dynamic of the creature. So I'm going to just pull in that direction and then go over the cheek like I would imagine it going over the cheek of one of my pets. We have 3 cats and 1 dog. So, and then same thing along the top, and this rake tool, because it's got so many little prongs, quickly gets the fur texture. I used to just do this all by hand, like 1 line at a time, and holy smokes, that was some serious painstaking time. Okay, so I quickly got texture in there of that fur. I'm going to go and do underneath this chin as well. And then once I'm done with that, we'll come to the other side and see how that's working out. Pull a little over the front of the nose, and then turn this guy over on his side, and we'll do the other side as well, spray that down. You can always dig a little deeper with the rake to get slightly deeper hair grooves. And also, once there's little specks on top, what you can do is you can take a little light sandpaper once it's all dry and get those little bumps off. And pulling it down, like the hair that comes down on your chin. All right. So we've got the base hair on this guy on its face. We got the top horn going. Got the lower lip started. He's definitely getting some personality going to him. So now I think it's time to start sculpting down on the on his side and the fur around this area. Because I think what we'll have to do is we'll have to do all the fur, let that dry, and then come back on another sculpting session and do that bone mask that's on top of him. We'll end up doing the antlers as well. I don't want to have any of this creature, any of the base form that I purchased, I don't want any of that coming through. I want it to all be completely covered up. Excuse me, I need a little more caffeine and liquid in my throatage. So, since I'm going to be covering bigger areas, I'm going to take the Magic Sculpt and really press it down, because I'm really just trying to get a fur texture over most of it. So I'm going to, basically it's like I'm making a Play-Doh pancake. So I'm going to turn this, get a rough idea for how much area I need to cover. I'm going to cut this Play-Doh bag in half. just doesn't have to be exact, but just to get the idea of it being in half. Good night, Wyatt. I will see you in the morning. Sleep well, my boy. I'm just going to lay this down on top and start to press it in. And then we'll end up cutting the excess off the back. And this, you should be able to just follow along the shape of the piece to cut most of the excess off. It's such a beautiful day here to go for a hike. It's a good way to spend a Saturday. Alright, I'm just going to smooth this down just a little bit. Spraying it with some water, and I'm going to work this magic sculpt, try and get most of the area of this creature covered. Try not to do too much on top of what I've already sculpted. Try not to mess any of that up. I'm going to grab just a piece of cardboard that came off of some packaging. Make sure he props up. Whoa. No, that's not propping him up. Alright, I'm going to have to hold him here. It's one of the things when you're working on smaller pieces, and if you want to get a lot done on it, you just have to be very mindful of wherever you're doing stuff. Sorry, I'm covering this up with my one hand while I'm pressing this magic sculpt in. Smooth this stuff down some more. And just kind of keep smoothing it in. And once I get this to a good consistency of what I want it to be, I'll probably bring some more down around the bottom, and then we'll just bring the rake tool in and start working this fur texture in as well. Probably cut some over top of this texture that's on its chest, just so that it has like that fur going over top of that that texture, so it looks like it's the two different elements that make up this beast. Alright, I think I'm going to be able to get this pretty far along, as long as I sculpt with it laying down on its side for a good chunk of it. So that's what I'm going to do for this part. So sorry that it's not going to be tilted up and as easily to see, but as easy to see. But I'm going to try and cut off excess now, and then just smooth it down the same way I smooth the other side down. Just going to spray it with some water and really work it into this this base hanger piece. And I'm sure at some point I'll pick it up to move it around. Actually, I do need to pick it up to really get my thumbs to work their strengthy magic. But this also gives it a way to blend the back together. Let's get this whole thing covered up. And again, this magic sculpt is just going to freaking totally bond to this piece. And again, since it's got this back on here, I'm just going to cut all the excess off by scraping my knife along. And if you use the surface that's here to kind of use it as your guide, it'll completely come off in a nice clean sweep. You won't have to do too much to it to sand it down to make sure it hangs well. But I'll definitely smooth it with my thumb a bit more. So anybody still around from the Saving Throw show? Were they playing D&D tonight? If you are. Okay, I'm going to put some of this on the front here because I'm going to have that fur come up around the bottom. I think this will should be enough to cover all this area pretty well, especially if I smooth it down. And gonna keep working this down. Alright. So what we'll do with this, I'll get all this worked in, we'll put the texture in, and that'll be one batch, or one small fistful of each of the magic sculpt, and we'll mix up a little bit more and keep working on this guy. I think we should be able, as long as I don't slam the pieces down into anything, we should be able to get the majority of this guy sculpted out and move on to something else so it can start to really set up overnight. And just trying to mash this down as good as I can. My thumbs are getting their workout tonight. Damn, I'm sorry your battery died. Are you plugged in now and charging up? I hate when my battery goes out. Okay, I'm going to cut some of this excess off of here just so that I can pull that in to patch up a couple more spots that I want to get covered before we start putting this fur texture in. And still not quite as smooth there as I want it. It's alright, we'll add some more water in a sec. Okay, I'm going to get this spot over here that needs a little bit. And then I'm going to take a little bit of this off because I'm not really excited about that. There we go. I'm going to bring that up into here. And then we're going to just give it a little bit more water to smooth it all down. And then it'll be time to put use the rake again. Ooh, I should have gotten that pushed down a little bit before spraying that water in. That's okay. So I'm definitely going to have to come back and put some more magic sculpt under the chin once I mix a little bit more up. That's okay. Okay, get that smoothed in, smooth this guy in. Alright. Now I'm going to take this, take the flat knife blade again. And I'm going to use this to put in a couple little lines coming off of here before I start doing the rake. I just like there being other deeper, different lines than what the rake tool does, because though the rake tool does do a great job with fur, I want there to be a little more variation than what it tends to provide. And I'll also need to, this is usually about the part in the creature where I'm starting to put my creature curation stamp. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that in as well in just a minute. So let's do this side as well. Doing a little here. I'm just pulling some lines in this direction just to give some more texture to it. Alright, let's grab my stamp. My creature curation is the little C that I use in most of my stuff. It's also the C for my last name. So I'm going to go ahead and jam this on its neck here. Alright. The ink will wear off when I paint it. So that gives it a little indentation. It has been branded by me. It has been marked. Now I'm going to take this rake tool and do the same thing that we did up top by bringing this fur texture in and knowing that, okay, fur usually goes in a certain direction with animals, so I'm going to pull this up like I would imagine the fur working on this creature. And I'm going to pull it the other way and bring it down this way. Try and get over that top section a little bit more. And then bring it in up here. I'm going to probably have to smooth things down just a little bit on that under shape in certain areas. But I'm quickly pulling all this fur texture in. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper with some of the grooves over here. Just by applying a little more force when putting the fur texture in. And then we're going to flip this guy over and do the same thing over here. Get him nice and moistened up. and start pulling this fur texture in and going lots of pressure in there and really giving it some good texture. And now these grooves are noticeable now, but when I actually go to paint him, there's going to be some really good deep grooves for the dark colors to blend into, or to seep into, and then it'll make it easy for dry brushing on top to really start pulling color and texture and depth into the creature. All right, that's good for that part for now. Let me pull him a little more in camera focus. I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to put some deeper grooves into the fur on the top of his head too. I think it needs it now that I'm seeing him in the rest of it. So I'm just going to pull down on it good. Pull down good here. There we go. Now this tool is starting to get, the rake is starting to get a little gunked up. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe it down with a paper towel and just kind of pull some of that magic sculpt off there. Excuse me. And now I've got to mix up a little more magic sculpt. So far, we've been able to cover the majority of this creature. We still need to do the ears and the antlers, and then we'll need to do the bone skull thing, that's the bone skull mask that's on top of it. So for right now, I'm going to mix up a smaller batch this time. If you weren't here for the beginning, I'm going to go through the same kind of talk I do whenever I'm doing the magic sculpt, but first I'm going to kind of wet my throat a little bit with a little iced coffee. Okay, so magic sculpt, 2-part air drying resin, like a clay. I buy it in these big 10-gallon buckets. I'm going to pull out some of the hardening agent. You mix them equal parts, 50-50. All right, is this going to be enough? No, that's not going to be quite enough. So I'm going to start out with a smaller ball of magic sculpt this time around, because I don't have as much surface area to cover. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to pull this one out, and this is the resin. They're two slightly different grays. Now they do make different color magic sculpt. They make one that's dyed black, but they don't do it in this big of a bucket. I like doing that on smaller pieces where I'm trying to knock them out really fast, and I have that black as the base color, so I don't have to prime them when I go to painting. But I get those in smaller buckets so that I can just do small pieces. All right, so now I've got about equal size pieces of the resin and the hardening agent. With this, I'm going to roll each one into a coil. Just do it quick to pull out each piece a little bit. Do the other one, then we're going to start to twist the two together. And I like to twist them like a twist donut or a cruller. You see that there's the darker gray and the lighter gray. They're not that much different, but when you're looking at them in person, you can really see the difference in the two, and just kind of twist them together. And as you twist together, you're then going to smash them together and smash them together until the two colors fuse as one. Sorry for the sticky smacky sound as it pulls on my gloves. And there we go. So with this guy, we'll go ahead and, I think I want to go ahead and do the antler horn things and see where they go, because then, or should I save those for last? I don't know. If I save those for last, I still have something decent in size to grab onto while I'm putting down the other magic sculpt. When I just have those little ears, it's not gonna be as easy to have something to grab onto. So maybe we'll do the ears first. Put in the little bit that's under the chin that I haven't gotten to do. A couple other little holes that need to be filled. So this is something that I'm trying to do, a handful of smaller pieces, smaller one-of-a-kind pieces that can be a lower price point. That'll be, I'm doing 2 shows in December. One is at the Red Brick Brewery in Atlanta on December the 3rd. Drawn and Disorderly. It's just a small pop-up show. And then another one in Chattanooga for an Indie Craft experience on December the 10th. And I want to have a bunch of smaller pieces that people could give as gifts, things like that. So I'll be doing a lot of smaller pieces over the next month in preparation for those two shows. And then after that, I'll ramp back up to doing bigger taxidermy style pieces for 2017's line of shows. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that little ball that I just mixed up and work this in under the chin here. And I'm just going to be trying to be careful not to overstep my thumbprints on any of the section that I've already laid down. And all right, this is going to go in easy. Since the rest of the Magic Sculpt under the chin is still a little bit soft and a little bit pliable, this is going to blend in real easy. Even when it's hard as a rock, if you apply enough water, it'll really smooth itself into all the nooks and crannies that you've already made. All right, but I think, so I've got that base down. I just need to remember to go back and add some of the hair texture to it later before it sets up. I'm not going to go in and add that now because right after you mix up the Magic Sculpt, it's a little too soft and not really, for me, it doesn't take the details that I want it to take right away. So I'm going to turn this guy upside down and start doing the upper part of his head. I don't have to do this. No, I'm going to be putting a skull down on top of it, but I kind of want to get that down so I know what he looks like without the skull. Whether it's relevant now or it comes into play later if I create another creature of the same race, I'll have a better understanding of who this creature is. So I think I've been doing a good job over the past week of trying to continue to write the stories behind some of the creatures that are on my website that I haven't put a story to. Yes, Monster Clay. I've only used it a handful of times, but I really like it. There's a soft, a medium, and hard consistency. It gets soft with heat, so you can throw it in the microwave for like 30 seconds to a minute, and it'll start to soften up so it's easier to move around. And as it cools, it will definitely it hardens, but it doesn't like completely harden. It works really great with your hands. It works really great with sculpting tools. The thing for me is I tend to make, it's not one that you would use to actually make a final piece out of because it never completely hardens. That I know of. There might be ways to do it, but that's just from what I've experienced. What I've done with it once I've made something out of Monster Clay, I've then made a silicone mold and then cast them out of like a liquid plastic resin to make multiples of things. So when I'm doing like one-of-a-kind pieces like this, I prefer to just do Magic Sculpt. But I'll probably dip into my Monster Clay. I don't think I'll have time tonight, but I'll probably dip into some maybe Monday night as I'm starting to make some pieces that I want to make magnets and stuff of to do some molds. I've got it right down beside me in a crock pot because somebody had told me that you could put it in a crock pot to keep it warm while you're working with it and it keeps it softer. My crock pot's is a really old one that we didn't use anymore that kind of has two settings, low and high, and on low it's a little too hot. It keeps it a little too molten-y, a little too liquidy, so. But yeah, the Monster Clay is pretty awesome. I'm sure I'll use it more and more as the years go by, especially when doing pieces that I want to cast. I'm just putting a little more Magic Sculpt around the back of this head to blend all this shape together. Plus, you know, Monster Clay's got a pretty awesome name. Makes you think you should probably be making monsters with it. Alright, I'm just working down some shape. Gotcha, I did not know that about the always being the same temperature. I guess I should just turn it on for a few minutes and turn it off and turn it on. Which would probably be a good way to go about doing it. Okay, I'm gonna start. You know, before I start doing the fur, start to build out its ears, I'm gonna go ahead and spray down the fur underneath its chin. Right on. I didn't know that. I should totally look it up to give myself a better understanding of how it would work. I'm going to take the rake tool again underneath the chin. This time I'm going to be pulling up towards the front of the mouth and trying not to get on the texture that's underneath in that pattern that I put under there. And just pulling up and making sure that I've got that chin in good shape. I'm putting a couple little dips. Like sometimes this tool will put a few little dents and holes in. Just trying to avoid a little of that. Oh, totally. That's a great idea. I like the idea of doing the rack on top. And yes, keeping the lid on. I think that's part of what it was. I had the lid on for a while before I started doing it. I just need to experiment around and figure out what seems to work best. And also, different people like working with it at different levels of how soft it is. Since I'm kind of used to this, I want it to be a little bit more rigid, so I don't want it super molten. Alright, I've got some good fur texture going on there. I'm going to wipe off my rake tool again, and I'll probably come back in and put a few more little added textures in as we go. But for now, let's go ahead and put some ears on this guy. And I'm just going to build up off the back of the ear, because it gives me a good place to grab onto the back and start building this out. I'm sorry, I'm going to leave this laying down because it's going to be a lot easier to lay this down than if I'm trying to tilt it up and angle it at a good angle. At least for now. I may, once I start getting the basic magic sculpt on here, I may twist it on its side. Especially because I'm going to want to look at it straight in the face and see how the overall the shape and the profile looks once this is on here. I should have pinched out equal parts so I knew how much I was working on for one side and how much I was working on for the other side. But that's okay. I will eyeball it. Okay, here I go with picking it up because I want to make sure that I get all the spots down around the back. Now let's go ahead and I'll spray it down to smooth it all out and see how it looks. Make sure it's getting a good shaped ear that's different than what was on here. It still seems to fit the creature. Make a little taller, a little more elfish with the pointiness. And I'm just making sure I blend it all in together and make sure it gets a good grip. And trying to figure out how to turn this guy around and hold him in ways that I'm not going to bang any of this stuff together. Alright. Alright, need some water on the inside. I really like sculpting ears. Something about pulling the shapes together and pulling the different the tops and bottoms of the shapes and thinning them out to a really thin thin points I think are really fun to work with. Till I end up banging them, like banging into them and having them bend in weird ways that they're not supposed to. And also, one of the nice things about these is since they're fantasy creatures, they don't have to look exactly precise like anything else that anybody's ever seen. Alright, so let's see. Let's take a look at this ear compared to the other ear. I'm going to look on my screen and see how it looks comparatively. Definitely pulls up a little bit. Twist that guy around. Alright. Whoa. I'm digging the shape of this ear. I think that's going to work well. I think it's fun. I think it's whimsical that it's coming off further off the side of the head, that it's got a little curve to it. It's kind of hard to see looking at it at that angle. Let me see if I tilt him and aim him directly, or her directly at the camera. Might be a little too much bright light on that. And ease in. Oh, wrong ear. Bending this ear around. So it's got a little whimsy to. Oh, like I said, I just banged that ear. All right, there we go. Let's see if I can do that and not mess that one up. Okay, I'm gonna grab off a piece of the Magic Sculpt, and it's time to press into this ear. Again, with this one, I'm gonna use the back of the ear as a place to pull it into, to pull that Magic Sculpt into. And we'll just kind of, I'm just gonna keep pushing it down into the piece. And now it's time to start spraying it down with some water. And now I'm really totally getting to the point where I don't have a lot of places that I can grab onto this guy. So I'm gonna end up applying too much pressure to these antlers. Gonna snap these guys off. See if I can. Oh yeah, there we go. Now I just have to be real gentle and hope I don't break my tool. The weight of this beast is fierce and strong. Alright. Trying to smooth this down and try and make the ears look similar so they're not too far off from one another. I do not mind asymmetry at all, or having things that aren't equal, because, you know, anatomy is never really quite 100% equal. It would look too unnatural if it was all the way equal. I'll go ahead and try and smooth this in a little bit while it's laying down, so it's less pressure for me to try not to drop it. So I have too much Magic Sculpt on there. And Nazareth, you were dropping some serious knowledge on crockpots. Are you a connoisseur of the crockpot? Just gonna keep blending this Magic Sculpt into the piece. All right, it's not quite grabbing the shape that I want back here. So I've got to turn this guy on its side and see if I can work this in somehow. And then also, once I start putting the fur texture on these ears, they're going to move around a little bit too. Hopefully, at that point, it won't be moving around too much though. Really just trying to smooth things down and get to the shape that I want it to be. Turn this guy down on his back again. And the ears are totally way off from one another, but they will get there. I'm really happy with the eyes that you chose. I think this character's got so much personality because of those eyes being in there. Alright. Now this here is definitely starting to come together. It's not looking exactly like the other one, but it's definitely much better than it was. I think it's the right overall shape for what this critter needs. I just need to pull some of these ridges on this ear up a little bit. And then I think it'll be time to add some texture to it. Does need some more water though to be able to do that. Spraying it down with the water really helps, especially when trying to pull the material into a finer, thinner texture or finer line. And I think that's pretty okay with where that is with that. I want to smooth this, pinch this down just a little bit. By just pulling and pinching it in, it really starts to get a nice thin line shape there. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to grab it by its antlers again. I'm going to spray the first ear that we did and use the rake tool to give some fur texture along the back. And then I'll do the same on the other side. I'm really loading it up with some water and just going to start pulling. I'm going to go gentler with the rake tool this time, just because I don't want to push the ear around too much. Especially this one had a nice bend to it that I really liked. I don't want to mess that up too much. I'd even just grab this tool and hold this one underneath while I'm giving that texture. Turn it over and do, there we go. Alright, that side's pretty good for that. I think I need to do a little bit more right here. Now we'll turn this one over, do the other ear, spray that down pretty well with water as well. Oh, grabbing this by the antlers. The antlers are going to be a little bit tricky to do while the rest of this is still wet, but I'm going to give it a go and see what happens. Worst case, they don't work and I have to do those again on another night. Okay, I'm going to spray this side down with some water. Alright, I think that worked out okay. I'm going to bring this rake tool up inside this ear just to smooth that down just a little bit. Alright. Alright, I like how those ears are coming together. I'm going to wipe off my rake tool again with this paper towel just to get all that excess magic sculpt off. Alright. Now that I've got that down, I'm going to spin that creature. I'm going to get these antlers in a good spot for laying down the magic sculpt around them. Now I've noticed now that I'm here that there's a line right here where the two pieces of clay kind of came together. I'm going to spray this with a little squirt and just kind of fuse this together a little bit. I'll even put some lines down into here and bring some in here. Now that I'm seeing it, I want just some deeper grooves of the fur around the nose. Let's even put a couple of lines in the eyebrows just a little bit, or the ridge around the top of the eye. Alright. Got just a little bit of magic sculpt left that's mixed up currently. So with that, let's go ahead. I'm going to break it off into fairly equal sections, knowing the antlers are pretty symmetrical at this point. And I'm just going to try and make a long, thin, kind of pancake type shape. smashing it down, and then that way use that to wrap around this this antler. And if I find that it's too much material, we'll just take some of that off and make sure to remove some from the other ball of Magic Sculpt. So now as we're doing this, we'll notice that we're building up this antler here, and the fur that's around the top of this creature is not going to be enough. So we're going to end up having to add more fur on top of that so it doesn't look like these antlers were just jammed in on top. So I'm just going to keep working this in. I'm going to pinch off any extra that feels like it's too much as I go around it. And in a few minutes, once I do this all the way around and really get it worked in, then I'll take some water to this, spray it down, and then we'll get it all nice and smooth and all the way around. And it should be to a good shape that will then add some texture to it. And I'll probably be using one of my texture maps that I've got, one of these rubber mats that's used for, it was used for something else at a craft store. I don't think it was for sculpting. That I found that had a good texture to it, so then I use that now. I use a couple different ones to quickly put textures into things easily. So now that I've sprayed this, I'm just going to kind of keep smoothing this, pulling the Magic Sculpt down the shape of the antler, so it thins it out a bit and tries to get it fairly consistent and gets off some of the extra Magic Sculpt that it doesn't need, so it's not so bulky. All right. And then I'll even add a little more shape to this probably, because I like that the ears were getting a little more whimsy with a little more wave to them. All right. Got a decent amount there. I'm going to smooth it down one more time. Then we'll get the other one going, and then once that's done, then we'll work on the textures. Just want to really make sure this kind of gets all the main lines out, gets it smoothed down as much as possible. And there we go. I think that's pretty good for that base. And probably change a little bit as we go once we get the details in. But this guy's coming along pretty well. Let me just pick him up just a little just to make sure I'm not missing anything on this side. No, all in all, pretty good. Side profile's looking okay. All right. So now I'm looking at the base of the clay that I put down that I pulled some off. I'm going to just go ahead and take a little bit of this off. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side, where I'm going to just squeeze this Magic Sculpt down into a long line of flat pancake. And that will give me something to give me the basis to wrap around this and wrap it around here. All right. Once this is all the way around, I'm just going to go ahead and start spraying water on it and just start pulling it like I pulled the other one. I think that should be good. Then I think with the little bits of Magic Sculpt that are left, okay, so now I'm kind of stuck. I've got nowhere I can grab onto this guy that's not going to mess anything up except for these two antlers, and they're now covered in Magic Sculpt. So now is the time that I've got to be super careful and not mess any of this stuff up. So I'm just going to try and be as gentle as possible while working this Magic Sculpt in for the antlers, knowing that when I go to start putting texture on these, I really have nowhere at all to go. It's like I've got to get it on, grab onto the antlers, and then it's going to have to just sit. I'm definitely going to have to wait to do anything with the skull on top until this stuff dries. So this one I'm going to have to finish up on Monday night, I do believe, once we get these antlers done. So I'll have to do this and then jump into something else. But maybe I will, here, I'll turn the crock pot on. Okay, gotta plug it in real quick. If I get this guy finished up, we'll start playing around with a little bit of monster clay. That stuff heats up enough for me to pull it out and do a little playing with that. Start sketching around with it and see if it goes anywhere. And it's getting a little bumpy here. Just want to get this a little bit smoother. Try and get it to a good shape where it fades itself down to a thinner endpoint. Choo-choo! Hopefully you guys can hear the trains in the background. It's a nice calming sound for me in the evenings. A lot of trains tend to go through. We have a train track in our backyard. Alright, I think that's a good point for that. Now I'm going to go ahead and spray these down. So for the texture map that I'm going to do on these, I'm going to grab, it's just this rubber textured surface that I got at a hobby shop, but something about it makes it feel very magical and mystical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray it down really wet, and then I'm just going to kind of grab and press in and work this down on top of the antler shapes. Actually, this antler still needs to be smoothed down a bit. Let me do that before I do that. But this will give it a lot of detail and texture really fast. While my family and I were on the hike today, I was looking at different textures. I got one pine cone, small little baby pine cone that I might try and see if I can work that into some sort of texture. Okay, now I've got nowhere to grab, so I'm just gonna lay this on and grab and pinch and mash this texture in and work, just try and get this in pretty good. Gonna try and tilt this up just a little. I know that I want to make sure I get the back side of it, even if it's not going to be seen by many people. Somebody's going to look at the back. And this texture doesn't have to go over the entire thing. It has to give the idea that it's carved into the antlers. I think that did a pretty good job there. So now I'm going to spray this side down a little bit more. Now we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to grab it from underneath and bring it around. And then that way, got to come back around on this side. Got a little piece of the ear that I can press in to give me a little bit of support. Alright, all in all, I think that gives it a quick texture. I'd like to pick it up to show you a little bit better, but I do not think that would be wise at this point. Let me spin it around. So for this guy, I still need to do the skull mask on top. I had thought there were going to be some bones or some vertebrae on its back, which I might do when I do the skull piece on top. But I think that's really about as far as I can get with this guy tonight, without really screwing him up, because he needs to set up and cure and dry. I'll put the teeth in at that point, I think. Or maybe I should go ahead and do a little tooth on each side. Let's do a little tooth on each side and see where it goes. I'm just going to take a little bit of the magic sculpt, real tiny bit. I'm going to pinch those off and roll those into two little teeth. And I'm going to do it on each side. Just going to roll it until I get a nice little tooth going. Okay. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to put a little dent down in his lip. I'm going to make a little spot for this tooth to go in. And I'm gonna have to spray this thing down a little bit and try and smooth this tooth in. And where's my little shovel? Come on, mini shovel. There we go. I'm gonna put this tooth in with a little bit of shovel. Just gonna press it down a little bit and shape it a little bit with the shovel. Just make it like it's coming out from inside the lip a little bit more. Okay, you know, I don't think that was the best idea. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that thing off of there and try and salvage what I'd done. And just kind of smooth that down a little bit. Hey, what's happening, Killer? For the eyeballs, I made the eyeballs myself. I used, let me grab one to show you. So this is, guys, pretty much done. This is as far as I can get at the moment with this magic sculpt. I'm going to let this dry, so I'm going to use some monster clay in a minute. So I'll go ahead and take my gloves off and talk about these eyes. So now that the gloves are off, I made these eyes out of they're glass caphons. I think it's C-A-P-H-O-N. I could be pronouncing that wrong. They were just kind of glass half domes. And not even half, like a third domes. And you can order them in different sizes. And I designed the eyes on the computer. I printed them out. I put glue on each side of the paper. Then I glued them down to the glass. And then I cut it out and added glue to the back. So I'm just designing my own eyes and making these. You can buy eyes from like taxidermy shops that are nicer than this. They actually come in, they're painted inside the concave of the eye so that when you're looking at it from all the different angles, you really get a much a richer and deeper sense of being. But these are pretty good for what they are, and I think they work well. So this is an alternate route, and you can also, with these, I can make all sorts of different crazy ass eyes that I want to make for different creatures. With these, I'll end up making these little pocket watch things, the pocket monsters that I make. But now I've just recently started making eyes for all of my creatures. Do you have any questions about that and how that's made? I'm going to go ahead and move this guy down. Well, no, we'll just leave him there. I don't want to move him too much, but I'm going to go ahead and see how my monster clay is heating up. Ooh, it's not heating up at all yet. That's okay. I'll take one of these balls of monster clay that was sitting on top. Yes, hang on. I'll grab two real quick. The three. So let's see. Here's my case of pocket monsters. I'll put some down and so you can see. These are some of the larger ones. I also do smaller size pocket monsters as well. It's kind of like little pocket watches, but there's no actual working watch parts. Just something to keep an eye on all your stuff. Okay, so this monster clay, when it's not heated up, is pretty tough. It's pretty hard, so I'm having a hard time getting it to move. I'll kick up my crock pot on high and see if it'll jump up at all. Make sure that's plugged in good. Yeah, exactly. That was one of the big things with me. When I started doing a lot more creatures that I was making, I was seeing other animals when I was looking at them, and I wasn't seeing exactly the creatures that I was making. So I didn't want to always have fox eyes or deer eyes and things like that. Yes, it would be cool to mount that as a pocket watch cover. What's that about eyes, Ray Love? Okay, I'm grabbing this this, and I'm trying to use the heat that's in my hands because I've got all sorts of warmth in me. I'm just going to try and work this out so I can start sculpting with it to show you a little bit of how this monster clay works. And hopefully the crock pot will heat that up. So it is the portal to the soul. Okay, so I'm gonna keep working this, and the more I kind of work it around in my hands, it's getting easier to manipulate and move. I'm hoping enough of it'll heat up so that I can really start to make something interesting. I think I'll try and start by starting to work on something that will be the base of like one of my magnets. I'm gonna grab a couple of magnets off of my wall to give myself a good foundation of the base. Okay, I didn't take classes and I didn't really watch videos. Around 2008, 2009, I started customizing toys. I started sculpting on those with Magic Sculpt, or with Sculpey, and I just started trying different techniques. Wow, I'm sorry about that. So I've seen a couple of videos online, and I should probably watch some more because I'd probably pick up a lot of interesting techniques. But a lot of the stuff I've learned is just from trying different things and doing stuff. So I went to art school, but it was more for comic book art, and then I went for graphic design. I ended up going for graphic design. Yeah, I can't imagine it starting in the eye. I'm very sorry as well. Yeah, the toys I made were, I just sculpted on top of pre-existing toys, and then I realized that I wanted to go bigger with the creatures that I was making. I started ordering this magic sculpt from a taxidermy shop, and then I started making larger monsters from there. Okay, this is starting to pull. I'm going to grab some magnets to put them down. And these are just really for me for size reference, to try and make sure I make these about the same size, because I'll be selling these and along with a couple other magnets I've made, so I want to make sure that I do these in a similar size. I definitely like it when this is warmed up a bit, because that makes it a lot softer and easier, more pliable and easy to work with. Hey, if it's legit, there's no need to get on to each other in here. So, all right, this is definitely starting to feel like it's more pliable. All right, so I'm just gonna try and work this down into the surface to give it something to try and grab onto. Actually, I'm gonna peel off this saran wrap. What I have down on top of here is just some foam core. How did I come up with my Twitch name? So I hadn't really watched much Twitch before I started streaming, and I was just I met somebody from Twitch at DragonCon, and she had mentioned that about me streaming on Twitch, thinking that my sculptures were cool and that'd be good for me to get out and do that. So I wasn't used to the idea of doing a handle and not just being me, because I was always pushing my artwork as my name. So cat dogs are always the best. Luckily, all of my cats and dog are out in a different room at the moment. All right, so Now you can, I think I picked up a little bit of the magic sculpt in here. Hopefully that doesn't affect things too much. You can see that I'm starting to move this stuff around a little bit with my hands. It's starting to feel a little more natural for moving it around. But it definitely took a little while to warm up just from body temperature. Throwing the stuff in the microwave would definitely go a long way. So with this, I knew that I wanted to do like some sort of Krampus creature at some point. So I'm going to go ahead and throw some eyes down. And for this, oh darn, I'm sorry. No, I totally didn't see that. I like props too, and prop making can be fun. I haven't really done much in the way of props. I just did. Food is definitely art. My wife was a butcher for a number of years up until we had our second kid, and now she's staying at home until our daughter starts school. But we are big fans of the cooking and the food, and all that it gives us. So I don't know what to suggest for a name. I always just try and go with my own name. If my own name isn't available, I add "the" to it because I think it sounds ridiculous. Makes me sound way more important than I actually am. So with this, I'm just, oh, it's kind of hard to see that angle, huh? I'm going to add, start adding a nose in here. I'm just going to start seeing if this can start turning into a Krampus-like creature. I'll start working out some horns. Excellent. Everybody line right up and head over there. Get your cat dog. For the horns, I'm going to do it in a similar way that I would with the magic sculpt. Just going to pull these down and in. Try and figure out what shape I like. Luckily, I can just always come back in and pull it around. It's crazy how easy it is for people to make the jackalopes as well. So this stuff smooths out pretty easy with your fingers. The problem I have with this is that it takes a little while to actually get that going. So with this, I'm going to use the same tools that I use when doing the magic sculpt. I'll use the same kind of knives and pull those in. Although you can heat it up. How do I color the clay? Like these guys, or the magic sculpt. Once it's dry, I spray paint it with like a black. Let's see. See if this will come in focus in this one, or if it's going to be too big. Yeah, let me hold it this way. This is one of the ones that I've been sculpting on recently. That once it was sculpted, I spray painted it black, and I've just started painting the background of it. So all the magic sculpt pieces, once they're set up, I'll spray paint them, and then I'll paint them with acrylic. Bye, Ray Ray Love. So with the monster clay, you can get a lot of really cool details, especially if you can spray it with what's that, with canned air, which gets really cold, and if you spray it with that, it'll make it, once it gets cold, it's easier to get little details with like sculpting tools. So I'll probably get these base shapes in and then start to add the details from there. So like trying to work these shapes in, changing the overall angle of the face by pushing in with these tools, and then smoothing it down with my finger since my finger still has the heat to it. It's difficult to mix into anything without seeing a bit. I did not, I'm not following along on the conversation, but that's okay. Alright, I'm just working this down just a little bit. I'm just going to keep adding to the overall shape. Since this one I haven't worked with this monster clay in a little while and it wasn't quite warm enough where I wanted it to be, I'm just going to play around with this. I'll pull this guy into view a little bit more. And I'm just going to keep adding to this overall shape. So knowing that I want it to be about this size, I definitely need to make this guy bigger. So I'll keep adding to it. Knowing that I want fur to come off its cheeks. So what sort of props did you want to make? You ever stare at a wood grain surface to get some inspiration for monster faces? Not specifically that, but every now and again, wherever I look around, I tend to see stuff. Most of the things that I do like to start getting inspiration, like when I was trying to do daily monster drawing every day, and I did a lot in 2016. I did a fair amount in 2015, but I always end up starting with circles and just drawing a couple circles and seeing where it takes me. I'm about to get back to doing that. I started to sketch today, but didn't get very far. I sketched yesterday. I tried doing Inktober and doing a daily ink drawing every day in October. Didn't fully get as far as I wanted to, but there's inspiration everywhere. The backs of buses while you're driving around, little bits and things in nature. Okay, so this guy isn't really looking like anything yet, but he will get there. Or he won't, he'll be scrapped. Right on, I will definitely do that, because it'd be cool to just do some sketching. The problem I found that something with my lighting, and when I'm just sketching and drawing, it doesn't pick up the pencil lines very well. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope to see you again. I hope your evening is filled with success and riches, and thank you for joining me on my quest. Yes, those wood knots are awesome. Oh, but yeah, so like my pencil, it wasn't getting picked up very well in the lighting of the camera, and so I haven't tried that again. So, but I will do it sometime, or maybe I'll just do a quick video with my phone and post it, because sometimes those tend to work a little bit better on those close-ups like that than this with my lighting setup and everything. Okay, I'm starting to get a basic shape and form of this face a little bit. I think it'll build up, and I think it'll get there. I've only, so you were talking, Yeah, I could do that. I could do like a really thin line Sharpie. Um, oh, my sketchbook's in the other room, but or my current sketchbook's in the other room. One of my previous sketchbooks. These are ones that I start with circles. Let's see if this picks up underneath. I'll just start doing circles around and see where it goes. But for some reason, while I'm drawing, the pencil lines are really super light. So that's the stuff oh, no worries. I don't have too much more time tonight. Usually I do from 9:30 to 11:30 on Saturday nights, and I'm going over to a friend's house. Oh, thank you very much. I like to draw monsters and random weird things. But I'm going tomorrow morning at like 9:30 my time to a friend's house to see their setup and see their studio, because I've never been over to their place before. So I'm not going to be on for more than a couple more minutes before I've got to call it a night, so that I can decompress from this and then get a few hours of sleep, because I like to get up before the morning. Excellent. Well, thank you. I'm a big fan of Jim Henson, so that's really awesome of you. But I don't remember where I was going with that. Oh, I like getting up a couple hours before I'm doing anything else, just to get a little bit of drawing in the morning. And also, I'm trying to force myself to write every morning as well. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. To try and write a little bit about each of my creatures, because I still have a handful of creatures that I've sculpted that don't have stories and how they fit into my universe or my world, where everything's set. So I'm trying to force myself to do that. It takes me a little longer to write even just a couple paragraphs than it takes me to sculpt and paint and stuff, because it doesn't come as easily for me. So now I'm just taking this. Next time when I'm doing something this small, I'll bring the camera down a little bit closer so it's easier to see. But I'm basically just going in and starting to add some texture into it. So tonight, so the next time I'm going to stream will be Monday night from 9:30 Eastern Standard Time to 11:30 Eastern. And then I will stream again. I'll be streaming on Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern, where I will be doing some painting on Wednesday night, or Wednesday afternoon. And I'm going to try to, the other week I sculpted, or I customized a Warhammer for part of my Halloween costume, so I think I'm going to do some more, or start doing some more like fantasy style weapons as well in the upcoming weeks, as well as continuing on smaller pieces for some shows in December that I need to have some more small pieces for. And then after that, I'm going to get into some really big taxidermy creatures that I'm going to be making. I've got a couple of styrofoam heads over next to me in my studio, like one of the bear-sized head that I'm going to make some ginormous critter for some shows for 2017 that I need to be working on. So I won't be doing too much more on this guy. I'm going to lift him up just a little bit so you can see where I'm starting to go with this a little bit better. So he's starting to get a little bit of texture and a little bit of details, but he's not quite there yet. Oh, awesome. Yes, thank you. I've got some weird handles that my day job business partner made from like handles of toy guns that he made resin or silicone molds and cast those out of resin. So I think I'm going to make some crazy knife thing and stuff like that. So and maybe some weird like sci-fi-ish ray guns. So, but yeah, I think I'm going to call it a night. Thank you for jumping in again this evening, and Killer, thanks for tuning in, and everybody else that's watching. I really appreciate you hanging out with me, and the chat is always awesome and fun. So thank you for joining me on my quest tonight, and I hope to see you all again very soon. And if you come up with any questions between now and the next time, feel free to jump into my Discord and post questions. Thank you very much. Have a good night, and I will see you all very soon. Oh, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it.